Hello, everyone. Good to see you all, new faces and old friends. Today we have a special edition, a special webinar to introduce some of the AI capabilities, use cases that we build around PlantAnApp. So my name is Bogdan Litescu, for those that are new to PlantAnApp. I'm the founder and CEO of PlantAnApp. And today we'll have a lot of ground to cover, so I will jump right to the subject. So we'll be talking a bit about the vision, why AI. We all know it's a big thing, it affects everyone, and how do we put that in the context of low code, of PlantAnApp, and where we are headed. We'll introduce some new capabilities that we added in the platform to both assist with AI-driven development, but also to expose AI-based features, capabilities to end-user applications. And finally, we'll look a bit at some use cases. I have a use case built especially for this event that is very quick and will show all the capabilities that we introduced, but also look at other use cases that we have in working, and also a new product that we are going to launch soon, which is a knowledge-based solution driven by AI. Good, so let's jump right in. And by the way, if there are questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A window, and I have Dale here with me, our head of support, that can watch it and bring it up as they come along. Good. So we started looking at OpenAI in January, and we were quickly impressed by its capabilities, but also threatened at the same time. So that prompted us to take a step back and think, what is the future going to look like, right? Because we see so many aspects influence. Like if you want to build a SaaS today, you could do it purely from writing code with AI and everything, right? So we are living those times. So from this perspective, it's never been easy to create technology. So where does low code fit into that? So because we quickly understood that either we adopt AI or we become obsolete over the next couple of years. So since our vision with low code has always been to make things simpler for everyone to build more sophisticated applications, that's where we see the best fit between the two technology, and that is the ability to generate applications purely from natural language. So that's how, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but in a couple of years for sure, you would just say, I need a CRM, and the AI will ask you, okay, I did these fields for you. Do you want anything else? And you say yes, and connect it to my website and do this and do that, right? You'll do all of that through natural language. So that's our vision for our platform as well. That's where we are headed, and some of the capabilities that you'll see today, you'll see the first steps in that direction. But it's not just about building applications, it's also about the customer expectations, right? Are web forms dead? The only reason web form exists is to get data that lives in natural form in our head and give it in a structured format to the computer so it can be run through processes and so on. But what if the AI can do that translation, between natural information and structured information? Do we need forms, or is it sufficient to just write in a single text area and the AI will infer all the information or ask for additional information if needed? So I think there will be a lot of customer expectations when you are building systems with PlantAnApp or with custom code or whatever the technology is. The customer expectation will be that the interfaces are simpler and more natural, and following more on the natural flows, on the natural conversations, rather than big forms, many buttons, and things like that. So that's where we see a very good mix between AI and low code. We see AI on the one hand can simplify the user interface, and it can not simplify it; it can radically change it. Honestly speaking. But also, if you think on the business process side, on the back end, when you are running a process, many steps could be automated with AI. You know that previously it was maybe deterministic. And to give you a simple example, let's say taking data from natural form, you know, we have this feature to connect to a mailbox in PlantAnApp. So imagine when you receive an email to be able to act on that email automatically, right, without having to search for keywords or things like that. You know? Right now, like we are doing on support, every email that comes in opens a support ticket. Is that how it should be, or AI can understand what that email is about and maybe send it to sales, maybe open it to support, maybe respond automatically with some links and some information. So that's a good example of mixing natural language which circulates in emails with processes that are deterministic. But the other way around as well, AI can generate lots of content as well, but it needs to be fed with structured data, right? So, for example, what I will show today, one of our features is SQL Assistant that generates SQL. It needed to be fed with the database schema, you know, which is a structure. It's a structured format. It's not natural, right? So this is the opportunity, and as a let's say as a meta level, what low code does for AI is being able to orchestrate the prompts, right? Because it's not you write a prompt and you get the desired output. As you get more and more sophisticated with low code and AI, you realize that you have to split a process in multiple prompts to AI with steps of deterministic processes in between until you get to the final output. So that being said, let me tell you a bit about our strategy. So in January, when we started, we understood that there's 3 layers that we have to think about. So first is the personal layer, where we use AI day-to-day in various activities, from marketing to sales to development to QA to support. There's platform capabilities, so capabilities that we build in PlantAnApp, either to speed up development or to build AI powered features for end users. And finally is the use cases that we build, right? Like I mentioned, the knowledge base solutions that we build, that is a use case, but we have a couple of other ones in various stages of implementation that I will briefly mention. So all of this we'll cover today. It's a bit ambitious. We'll see how far we can go. And many things I have prepared, so we'll not build things from scratch to save time, but rather demonstrate the capabilities and the concept. Good. So I will start with how we use it at a personal level, because I think this flows very naturally into how we are implementing AI capabilities. So most of you probably used ChatGPT, where you have an interface like this. So for example, here is where I used it to write this email that invited you to this webinar. Right? So I had a couple of tries. I didn't like the first one. It was too much, let's say, marketing. So then I tried a couple more until I arrived to the final one that I needed. Of course, I didn't take all of this, so I still had to think about it. Should it be like this or not? And then I asked it to optimize the title. I didn't like the title. And then I asked it to create the LinkedIn post as well. Of course, it did a long post, so then I asked it to make it shorter, more concise, so things like that. So this helped me transform maybe a 1-hour job in a 5-minute job. So it's my personal productivity. This is let's say the more personal use of AI. What the next level is to create a developer account on OpenAI, and then you'll have access to platform.openai.com. So here is where you have more power, more parameters, and once you switch to this interface, you'll find that it's very close to how the APIs are structured. So that makes it quite easy to testing here, which is crucial, to test things really fast, see how it performs before moving it to PlantAnApp to automation. So just to give you an example, this is a use case where AI was able to generate a HTML to Word action for PlantAnApp. So it generated a C# code that compiles and can be deployed to be used. It's ready to be used, right? So there are a couple of parts of how OpenAI expects it to work, and you'll notice this when we get to the platform capabilities, it's the same structure. So you have a system message where you tell it the instructions of how it should behave. Usually this is the part that stays fixed. You'll reuse this across multiple inquiries. So for example, here I have instructions where I tell it that you are in a system that writes actions for the PlantAnApp low-code platform. I gave it the interface of our action. I gave it the context, so it doesn't matter, a lot of code that it knew. So now it knows our action interface. So then I tell it, I need an action to generate Word documents from HTML and a bit more instructions. And you see it wrote to me here, copy paste and use it. Of course, I think there was a, let's say, more back and forth conversation, asking it to do things, to generate config files. I had a build error, I gave it the error, it gave me the solution, so it's a big, it's not a one-time thing, it's usually a conversation. So once you understand the structure of system, user, and assistant messages, and this is all of it, you'll notice, and I will just show it for a second, the chat APIs that OpenAI exposes, it has the same structure. It has an array of messages that can be system, user, or assistant. So that's why I think once you get serious about automating it, it's important to switch to this interface where you can also play with various parameters to test this and each scenario. So once we understand this, I will move towards presenting some of the capabilities introduced in PlantAnApp. And the first one that I will show you is the SQL AI assistant. So what it does, it generates SQL queries that are very specific to PlantAnApp. So the AI is receiving the data model from PlantAnApp, from your application, so it knows exactly what query to write. And again, you'll notice it's a conversation. It's not a one-time thing. Let me switch to this one. Good. So to illustrate, I have here an application where I did a bunch of tests using AI, but just to illustrate the purpose, I'll create something, a simple API from scratch. Let's say test SQL AI. So this functionality is available directly in the run SQL query. So for those of you that are new to PlantAnApp, you know that you should know that business logic is composed of these actions. So you have actions like sending email, generating documents, but you also have these more advanced actions like writing queries directly against the database. So this is the SQL action where you have to put the query. Of course, normally, until now, people would write it by hand. Now we have this AI assistant here, experimental, where we can start asking it stuff. So let's start with give me all customers from New York. You remember this example from a previous webinar where we gave a sneak preview of this feature. Until this computes, let me show you why this works. It works because behind the scenes, in the entities, we have the data models. We have a customer data model, and the data model, if we look at it, it has all this property, name, phone, email, revenue, and so on. And also it has a list of addresses, which is another entity and is linked to this one. So that's how AI knows to write a very specific query. So it gave me all the customers from New York. Let's say filter customers that have over 10 employees and 1 mil or more in revenue. So this behind the scene here, we are using GPT-4, which is so much more powerful than GPT-3, but also much slower currently. They are working on improving the speed. So it's still in private beta, so not, let's say, not ready to use in production, but I think very good to start preparing the use cases for launching. And I expect maybe in a couple of months, GPT-4 will get there as well in terms of performance.
So Bogdan, while you're waiting for that to come back, there is a question. What build will the SQL AI assistant be available?
Sorry, can you repeat?
When, in our product, when will the SQL AI assistant be available?
So the build is already done. Likely we'll publish it by the end of this week. So it will be available as a hotfix inside your PlantAnApp instances.
So 124 or 125? Okay.
It's 125 only, yes. And not only it's 125, for now it's only in these new interfaces. So it's in the APIs and automation. That's where this AI assistant is available. If you use it in workflows or forms, it's not yet available, but it's a matter of time. Probably in a couple of weeks, we'll have it there as well. Good. Let's say I need only a customer ID and name and returned as JSON. So you can continue the conversation, and this query can get very complex because, as you can imagine, OpenAI knows probably more SQL than any person in the world because it learned from the internet.
I see in the example that it's already done that it's smart enough to pull out and use bind tokens.
Yes, you see that here. I think it last. You see. This is ChatGPT is being overloaded at the moment, so I noticed this today. So then I have an example already prepared in here to show you the final output. So I kept going with it. So same example: New York, give me companies with 50 employees or more. Return as JSON. Here he did a mistake. He didn't understand that I wanted JSON. So then I asked it to correct it. So to give me the real JSON. With the 3 properties, actually it was 2, but in the end, it put city as well. So in the end, you see it wrote the query that just returns the JSON array for me. So same as with OpenAI, you keep to have you have to keep giving it good instructions to give you correct output. So this is still experimental. I think there's a lot we can improve here. And you notice that on the last response, you have, was this helpful or not? So this would really help us improve the model as you are using it to help you write queries, to give ratings, to say, yes, it was helpful, or if it was not helpful, you'll be asked to give some feedback, what could have been done better, right? So let's say too many timeouts.
So we do have 2 of the same question, and it's about the OpenAI key, whether they'll need it to provide an OpenAI key to use this feature, or how.
Yes. So this feature doesn't need an OpenAI key because it's configured on one of our systems. So our system has the model and everything. So when you write a command here, it doesn't go directly to OpenAI. It goes to a PlantAnApp system that asks it, give me the data model, give me the detailed data model, and so on. So it's a couple of exchanges with an API that we built that has the entire business logic on how to instruct AI and what to get back from the AI. So you don't need an API key for this, or an OpenAI account for this feature.
Good, thank you.
Good. So yes, this is only the beginning. We have so much coming, but this is where we want to take things to be able to generate more things from natural language, and things could be even entities. So we had Peter, our product owner, he did a model to generate entities from natural language. We have a pilot for generating forms from natural language. We have another pilot to generate reports from natural language, because once we have this query, AI can take care of displaying it in a chart, in a pie chart, in a bar chart, in a line chart based on the data. So imagine how powerful that would be, that a business person just creates this report from natural language.
And just for clarity, there's a question about data models. Will we be able to use our own data models?
So for now, we restricted to this to PlantAnApp. So you see, the moment I put a connection string, it will tell you that it only works with the built-in database. But this is a matter of time. The next steps, we already have planned to support other databases, but also other database types. So Oracle, Postgres, MySQL, and so on.
Thank you. And will there be similar webinars when we get to form generation and chart generation and things like that?
Yes.
Absolutely. Stay on our list. We will let you know.
Good. So this is, let's say, on optimizing, improving, helping, accelerating development. Let's move on the customer side. So how end customers or end users of the applications, let's say end users of the application, how will they benefit from the capabilities that we've introduced? So as a matter of fact, let me just briefly show you the action. So I'll just create a blank workflow just to show you. But now we have an OpenAI connector, and again, it will be released by the end of the week. And then the OpenAI connector comes with a couple of actions. So it has a chat action, it has an action to estimate the number of tokens. Once you get into AI, you'll understand that tokens, it's a big thing because it limits how much information you can pass and get out of the AI. So various models will have various limitations, like GPT-3 versus 4. We have a speech-to-text action that uses Whisper. We have an action to summarize content and a couple more actions added. It's worth noting that this OpenAI will not be included in the Harvest subscription. It will be an add-on on the marketplace. When the marketplace, it will be ready. But in the meantime, we'll serve it manually through sales. So contact us if you need access to this one. But first, let's look at what it does. And instead of, I could go to show you each action, what each setting do. But instead of this, right before this webinar, I built an example to generate blog articles from videos. So it's a valid scenario, especially like you think, even PlantAnApp, we used to do one webinar, low-code Café per week. Now we do it every 2 weeks, but still 1 hour of video content that could be, we could capitalize on it a lot more than just sitting on YouTube and nobody seeing it, because nobody wants to watch 1 hour of video to find a piece of information. So I've already built this before, so I will just show you. How it works. So here I have a video to blog. The UI is not excellent, but after I finish this showing these capabilities, we'll move to some use cases that we do have ready that look very nice. So you'll see it in a few. So here I have a couple of examples, but I will not go through them unless AI will take too longer to respond. We'll start from scratch. So here I have a video, and let's look at this video. This video it's an interview with one of our customers about how they transition to PlantAnApp. So this one is a good example for creating marketing purposing or sales purposed or case study purposed blog article. So I'm just adding in the list. So now I have an entry here. It doesn't have any data. I created each stage separately as a button, so we can look at each action, each function, each new functionality independently. So the first one is getting the audio from YouTube. So this doesn't use AI, and it's a good example on how low-code complements AI and vice versa. Right? So here, when I click this button, what it does behind the scenes, and I see it already gave me a file here, it saved me a disk on disk. But what this does behind the scene, maybe I should just show the button. Actually, the button doesn't do much, but let's look briefly at it. So I have an audio button here that has a couple of actions. It just creates a file name, a random file name, and then it executes a workflow, giving it the YouTube URL and the name to save it as. And then updates the entry that you saw in the article and then refreshes the listing. So this workflow is it's interesting because this workflow here, download audio, is just an action that runs PowerShell. I found a tool that can download audio directly from YouTube. So I use this one with a couple of parameters, and then I passed it as input the YouTube URL and the file name, and then it saves the files automatically on disk. So pretty, I managed to do it pretty easily. Good. So, sorry, this Zoom window sits on top, and I cannot see my. Maybe I'll keep it like this for now. Good. So let's get back to this screen, right? So now I downloaded the audio file from YouTube, and the next thing for me is to do the transcript. So I click on transcript, and until it finishes, let me show you what this button does. So now switching to the back end of the listing. In the transcript button, we have an action speech text, which is Whisper is called. The API from OpenAI is called Whisper. So here, now you start seeing, giving it an OpenAI key. So you have your own OpenAI key that you put here. And then you, of course, I use a token here. I keep it in a place and I use it in multiple different places. And then you give it a path to an audio file, and the path can be various things, can be relative to the portal, like I used here, or it can be absolute URL and so on. It supports multiple different formats, MP3, MPEG, and so on. But when I use the tool, I already saved it as MP3. I have options to choose a format that I want back. In my case, text would be enough. I just need the content to write a blog article. In other cases, let's say you want to create links back to the video, like you want to create a table of contents, then maybe you want to get a JSON or other format that also has the timestamps. Here, the prompt, you can give it more instructions on how to generate the transcription, although I've seen this API not doing well with prompts. There's an entire page on OpenAI, you can look at it. So I couldn't get it to have a valid use case for it yet. And then I'm just saving the output, the transcript, and I'm putting it in the blog. So what you see here, for example, is this field that was generated with the transcript of the video. You'll already notice that as any automatic transcription that you've ever seen, there's lots of errors. Like you see PlantAnApp. What is PlantAnApp? This was supposed to be PlantAnApp. So there's ways to fix it, and the best way here is to use ChatGPT. Right? So ChatGPT understands the context behind just looking at words, so it can correct it. So when I click this summary button, the next stage I'm creating a summary out of it, and until this finishes, let's quickly look at what the summary button does. So here in the summary, we use another action that comes with the OpenAI connector, which is summarize content. So again, you choose which API keys to use. You can use various models. So GPT-4, as mentioned, it's much better, but also much slower, and tends to time out until probably it will be released. GPT-3 is much faster, but is not as good quality content. And then the instructions. The instructions are very important because you'll see here, and these are actually instructions. I'm sure they will speak more about it later in the webinar. But here are learnings that we did that we need to pass to the AI. So what are the words that usually don't end up right? Things like that. names of people, that usually it doesn't get right, transcription don't get right, some translation as we rename some features, renaming it from one thing to another, and so on. So at the end, so I'm giving as input the transcript, and I'm getting back the summary. So the summary is what I will say back to the blog entry. So my blog entry became a collection of many different stages of how the article gets from the YouTube video up to the HTML that will be published. So let's see. Yeah, I see it's finished. So now you see a much more cursive written text. I asked it to also summarize it besides correcting it, but you see now it doesn't say PlantAnApp, it's correctly PlantAnApp. So it already went from, let's say, 90% accuracy to maybe 99.5% accuracy, because all the instruction, the learning that we passed over to AI. And the final stage, we'll use this summary to generate an article from this summary. And by the way, before moving away from the summary one, and actually let me click the article because this will take, I think, longer, writing the actual article. But let me get back a bit to the summary action. So what's interesting about the summary? Of course, you could have done this with the chat action as well and give it the instructions. But this action also tries to do other things. It tries to handle large content, for example. So I was mentioning earlier that ChatGPT has a limitation 4,000 tokens for GPT-3, GPT-4, 8,000 tokens, and it will be up to 32,000 tokens at some point. But still, if you give it a PDF of 100 pages or even 1920 pages, it will be too much. How do you summarize that? OpenAI will error out. So this action tries to split the content and generate multiple summaries and then concatenate all the summaries and generate a final summary. So it does all of this behind the scenes. Good. So let's move to the final step, which is generating the article. So here we are using the Chat API, the ChatGPT action. So again, giving it a key, giving it a model, and here I use GPT-3 because as mentioned, GPT-4 will take too long and it's not as good outputs. Sorry, GPT-4 will take too long and it will time out. So here I sacrifice for, let's say, lower quality content just for demonstration purposes. But here again, you see the instructions. You are on a system that writes exciting and fresh blog articles optimized for capturing leads through call to action. The output must contain HTML tags as follows. So I give you some instructions where to put H1 tags, H2 tags, font sizes, things like that. Because ultimately, I would like to be able to copy paste this article to the main website, let's say, or better yet, have a feature that publishes. I schedule it from here to be published automatically. So then I remove that copy pasting as well. So and then I store the summary, and that's all that I had to do here. As I mentioned before, this can be a conversation, and when we move to a different use case, I will show you how. But this you see here, you have the ability. So you have the ability to store the entire conversation JSON. So then, if you save it and you pass it here to the next conversation, it will have the context of all previous exchange of messages, and it will continue in the same context. So that's how you create conversation instead of a one-time thing that I'm doing here. And then, so I'm passing the summary, I'm capturing a new variable article, and I'm just updating the article in the blog. Let's see. Oh, so yes, it finished. Yeah. So you see it created a blog article, very bold, the future of .NET solutions. Choosing the right platform, discovering PlantAnApp, why transition to PlantAnApp. So it was able to write all of this. And also it understood that I want a call to action. So you see it, because I didn't specify what call to action, I could have said, oh, point people to this, or write an email, or go to this form or this page. But it just created a call to action by itself. So there it is. I have I have a end-to-end process from a YouTube video to get down to an HTML-based article that's ready to be published. And this took me around 40 minutes to build before this webinar with the actions, the OpenAI actions. Any questions about any of these actions before we move on towards more use cases?
We have one question or comment, but exploring PlantAnApp, so would be creating these buttons, or are there templates or similar for building out processes?
So usually you can put the logic on the buttons like I did, but that works when you have, let's say, very little logic. Usually you'll end up building workflows. So maybe I will skip a bit ahead just to show you how workflows look like, to show you a bit more advanced ones. So let's see, maybe let me find one. Oh, this one, continue existing chat, for example. Now, so this is a process that had various actions. Each of these actions does something. So this one reads the account as being a multi-tenant system. So first step, we read the account from an input parameter. No. And then it creates a conversation, and then it prepares some examples that we feed to AI, and so on. So you'd be using building blocks, and some we have many here. But building blocks could be as simple as sending an email, so very simple one, from to subject, body, and of course, body could be something generated by AI that you insert here, and so on. Of course, you can split the processes, you can fork it, you can run them automatically on events and so on. It's a big question to present now, but yeah, reach out and we'll do a proper demo of the capabilities.
Yeah, very good. And that's similar to the answer I was going with. We're providing a great number of building blocks, but also as we move towards marketplace, we'll be providing templates as well. And the community can provide templates through our marketplace as well. Great. No more questions at this point.
Good. Let's explore a bit use cases. So, for example, what we have here is various use cases that we've started. Either they are under discussion with some potential leads, or they are already in use by ourselves or by some of our customers. So this one is very common. I see lots of solutions about meeting insights. Getting a transcript and generating all sorts of output out of it, and this can be done manually as well. So you could easily, even here in Zoom, get the transcript after this call and ask it a bunch of questions. Like what were the topics discussed? Were there any AI follow-up actions? Like the person that just has that question, maybe that's a follow-up action for us. So you can ask it all these questions and get things out of it. So you could do that manually, but of course, when you start doing it to low code, you can personalize it. You can include business logic, various flows, send it to various systems, send notifications, things like that. So you can start building logic around it. So we see this quite a lot. The report generator I mentioned to you, so the ability to build a visual dashboard exclusively by using natural language, so not seeing any SQL at all, or things like that, or writing JavaScript code or things like that. Very, very powerful use case. Email interpretation I mentioned as well. So imagine receiving an email from someone and being able to automatically categorize or follow or forward that email, or open a certain type of ticket in a specific system, or things like that. And again, it's a conversation, so you can go back and forth. The AI can say, "Oh, I need more information over email," and so on. We have some use cases regarding lead generation. The big problem of lead generation, what everybody is doing is you build the same message and you spam 1,000 people, hoping 1 or 5% usually, you hope that they will respond. of course, AI has the capability to personalize for each specific lead that's targeted, and not just personalized based on the history the company has in the CRM, let's say, but also the AI can go out to look at the social media accounts for that lead, and then act when he sees a lead doing a certain type of activity, going to an event, liking a post, then maybe that's when it needs to generate a outreach action. Knowledge base, we'll talk about this in a bit, quite in detail. We have some use cases on automated generation of offers. Offers usually are complex things because you need to bring some technical information, some marketing information, with some sales information, some pricing, and so on. Some Q&A, some concerns that you have to address. So the ability to build this through AI speeds things a lot, and also the quality it improves it a lot. We have use cases to produce documentation. So that's a very, very interesting use case, especially as AI is able to understand both the language of customers, so product, but also the language of developers. So it can look at the code and document it in a manner that's understood by everyone. Marketing content, like the use case that we build, it's quite a straightforward one on how to build, let's say, a blog article generator from YouTube, but can be from other sources as well. And you can have multiple parameters, like which keywords do you want to optimize for, and things like that. We see in onboarding and support as well. So I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but in PlantAnApp support now, it's AI that generates the answers. It doesn't post it automatically, but when one of our support agents goes to respond to a ticket, the response is already filled by AI based on all the knowledge that we acquired in the organization. Good. Yeah, so form generation, many more, and this is just touching the surface. The potential is so great for how many different types of use cases it can be built. Good. So let me jump a bit to show you a real system using AI, so a Polish system that will likely go live with it in a couple of weeks. We call it Bazinga. It's a knowledge base to conversation solution. So what it does, it acquires content from various sources. So it could be the public website, but also the SharePoint site, maybe some PDFs, internal PDFs that the organization has, maybe some wiki, internal wiki, and so on. So for example, what we did at PlantAnApp, we brought all the past support tickets, community forums. We are about to bring the transcripts from all the YouTube videos, and then make this to a certain format, so to an equal format, and then we use this as examples for ChatGPT. And I will show you to you in a minute. Of course, when you start building applications with AI, there's many concerns that you have to think about it. For example, in the form generation scenario, you wouldn't be concerned about privacy because you are asking it to generate a form for me with these 3 fields. But if you are asking to act on a lead, maybe that's where you have private information and you want to do more security control. Like one thing that we plan on doing is to anonymize data before we send it to OpenAI, and then replace it back once the response gets back from OpenAI. Yeah, so the governance side is, of course, quite big. So let me show you a bit to you how Bazinga looks like. So it's a chat interface, so it can be used directly from the browser, but we plan to be able to embed it on a website, to use it through APIs, to use it through Teams, through Slack, to WhatsApp, or other messaging applications. So basically, let me see if I can load one of the previous conversations. So how can I connect to Salesforce? And this was using our PlantAnApp assistant. So basically acting on the PlantAnApp knowledge. So it found that we have an action for it, and it gave me instructions about how to use those actions. Another example here that Here, what we did is we indexed the government of Bermuda website, and now we can ask questions about public information. So again, it was one of those use cases where we don't care about PII information. So how can I import a luxury car in Bermuda? And then it gave me some detailed instructions on how to do it. And then it's a conversation. So here, for example, at step 3 says I need to get an approval from a certain department. And then, of course, how I asked further, I asked, how do I get that approval? And again, it gave me the next steps and so on. So it all works by getting the data together, and then you build assistants, and assistants are trained for various purposes, and they use different collections of data. We have quite a few of them, and also maybe you notice some new capabilities while I was showing this. Like you notice this here. This is a new view for our listing module, by the way, which will be released as well in experimental mode, but you can already start using it. So it's basically the same thing. It's a listing, but instead of seeing like a table or a car view or a calendar view, you see a conversation view. So very, very cool. Which, by the way, this everything that you see here, the UI, the layout, the code, was done by AI as well. Good. So I would like to invite Dale to tell us a bit about these various assistants that he's built here and how they are used.
Sure, I will be happy to do that. So Bogdan signed me onto this project several months ago, and I went from knowing nothing about AI to being a big believer in AI. There's so much. I mean, it is a truly helpful assistant. And so one of the things in my role as head of support, I respond to a lot of tickets. And early on, years ago, I tried to use voice transcription to be able to respond without having to type so much. And it turned out that it was pretty useless because for example, I was trying to use Google Voice, which is great, but it has limitations, and you saw some of that. So I'm using the translation assistant to help me with this. Now, let me see if I can actually dictate something and see what the problems are. Thank you for attending this webinar from PlantAnApp. We hope that by attending, you will have gained an understanding of how low-code and artificial intelligence come together beautifully to help turn knowledge into conversations and actions. If you would like a personalized demonstration, please reach out to us. It would be our pleasure to demonstrate the power of Bazinga. If you enjoyed this webinar, we invite you to join us each week at 10 a.m. Central Time. So, same thing that Bogdan encountered, that the voice transcription was just not quality enough to get to be able to respond. But I use this within Bazinga. For example, if I have this voice transcription, and we'll take a look at the rules. Bogdan showed them here a moment ago, but the job description does a lot of work for me in making those changes that he reviewed quite a bit. And one of them that he didn't happen to mention was like this one. I do a lot of time, since I work in the central time zone, but our customers are all over the world and our development team is in Romania, I have to do a lot of time conversions. So that's why I mentioned the time in my sample here. But this is the assistant that's going to do this job, Yeoman Voice Transcription. So I'm going to go to chat and paste what I just transcribed, what Google just transcribed for me, and send it off and let it go do some work. But hopefully we won't run into the same OpenAI limits that were going on earlier with Bogdan's demonstration. But with those kind of, those rules that I was just pointing out in the assistant, those become so important a factor as you try to harness AI. It has a great deal of knowledge, but it needs direction. Think of it as a very, very helpful assistant that wants to help you, but you've got to tell it how to help you. So over time, you develop those. They're almost recipes for what would you like it to do. So let's see what it came back with. It cleaned up PlantAnApp. It added some exclamation points for me. Notice that on the time, it did a bunch of conversions for me, so you guys know exactly what that means in your time zone. This has now leveraged me. I'm looking at your tickets. I can talk to Google and let it do a transcription for me, and then improve that. This gives me something to edit. I often don't send exactly what it comes up with, but it saves me just a ton of time. So that's one use case that's going on every day now. One that is just incredibly helpful to me is the YouTube assistant, and I'm going to get this one started and then kind of explain it. We have a video that I produced years ago, and I'm going to grab the transcript from it and get YouTube to do the work on it for me. Excuse me, get Bazinga to do the work on it for me. So I'm going to copy all that text right out of there and go to Bazinga and switch to, we'll do a new conversation here, and switch to something that's been trained to do that. So YouTube webinar transcripts has a very defined set of rules. I'm pasting in all that content, and we'll send it off for some work. And let's make sure it gets started. So just to kind of give you a sense of what's happening, this is a 5-minute video. We do at least 2 hours of video a week that we produce. And our old process was that somebody like Patrick, who's a technical success manager here and is on the call today as well, would pay attention for an hour and write down topics, what's happening, what timing marks, and a whole process to make sure that we had very good notes within the YouTube video that would that will help people get to that spot in the video very quickly. But that takes an hour of his time. And when Patrick was out, I would have to go back through for an hour and listen to the video again and produce that content. And so having an assistant, and here we're talking through it and waiting, it'll take about a minute to process through this, but offline, after a video, I can set this to work and then go about my job. And then after a while, we'll have a nice content that's coming back. So we'll let that perk a little longer in the background, and I'm going to go on to documentation. The new PlantAnApp has a website, learn.plantanapp.com, and we have within that you can get to the documentation site. And our documentation has been revamped a great deal in this last year, but it's always a challenge when we come up with new actions to get them documented. The actions that Bogdan was showing you a little while ago are in the OpenAI category, and just yesterday I spent 2 hours and documented all of these actions using AI. So for example, the chat action, I was able to get this content generated. It shows the inputs and what we're expecting. It shows the outputs and what we're expecting. It shows an example of how to use it that you could directly import into the product, like into a workflow. And we've done that for all of them. And just without actually going through it, I wanted to point out that what we did was we passed it the actual code for that action. So the chat action has, this is our code behind that is embedded deep into the product. And we have a configuration file that defines how you get prompted on the screen to fill in the blanks. And that has a lot of kind of inline documentation in it. So we passed these two things plus some rules about what we wanted out of it. And what we got was Markdown. This is our documentation system. It's another app within PlantAnApp that takes Markdown and which is a nice language for documentation, and turns it into HTML and publishes it on the website. So that which we were looking at, all this pound signs and tables and all were generated automatically by the Bazinga training that we've done. And I worked a little bit on the example to improve it, to make sure that it imported correctly and was a good example. But it suggested a basic setup for me. So the fact that we're now, I mean, documentation is one of the hardest things to do, and we turn around and put AI to work at it so that it's really reflects the code and the intent, but isn't quite the drudgery to produce. So let's go back here and see if this thing finished, and it did. It took that video and it created a title, a summary. It has timings on it, breaking the topics down into segments. So this is suitable now to just copy and paste onto YouTube and improve the way that the YouTube video works, in that you'll be able to jump right to that section of the video and understand exactly what's in there. Okay, Bogdan, those are the ones that I prepared for today.
Thanks a lot, Dale. It's quite impressive how much work AI saves, and of course, when you combine it, because you saw what Dale did and a bit of what I did, and I'm sure what you do when you use AI, ChatGPT. It's a lot of copy pasting around. No? So I think the ability to automate those processes and streamline them, it's probably the greatest asset that we can bring to the table right now. And we are not stopping here. This is just scratching the surface. We are already reaping the benefits. I think right now we live in the world where AI is an opportunity for the fast movers, and we want to move fast. I think next year it will be more like a threat for people that didn't do it this year. So that's why we are continuing on this journey. We have many features planned to keep adding to the product and to our processes, and increase the quality of our product, of our support, of our documentation, like you've seen. So make this part of our day-to-day life. So I think we are just in time.
Perfect.
Are there any last questions?
Yeah, we would be happy to stick around for a couple of minutes and ask questions. We understand that we want to honor your hour. We're just going to take any last-minute questions, but of course, all this will be on our website, youtube.com/PlantAnApp. So if you have to drop away, please stop back and get any answers. Very good. None so far. So good. I hope we have excited you about what's possible with AI and what's on the roadmap for PlantAnApp. Well done.
Yes, thank you all for being here. I think this marks the beginning of a new era for PlantAnApp, and probably a repositioning in terms of being a platform to build AI-driven apps. Thank you all.